All right, we mentioned Kristaps Porzingis. He's expected to miss several games, I should say. They're saying up to 6 games, or that's kind of an estimate. Rob G, give us Porzingis, give us the update on Porzingis if you can. And then give us, there's a laundry list of players in these playoffs that are hurt, and star players, not role players, star players. So give us that list.
So first off, Kristaps Porzingis has dealing with that dreaded soleus injury in his calf muscle, the same one that Giannis is currently dealing with. And according to multiple Twitter doctors, that's the kind of injury that's going to take a minimum 2 weeks before he come back to action. So that's why you would expect the 6-game mark feels right, that whatever that is, that's probably 2 to 3 weeks worth of actual time that he's going to be out. And if you're Boston, that's obviously got to be terrible.
Yeah, man, and it was non-contact, Chris.
Non-contact.
You know?
Well, those are the worst injuries.
Yeah.
Really, in basketball, and even sometimes in football.
Sure. But those are the ones that you get really nervous about.
Yeah, because it'll be structural.
Right.
There's a ligament or something like that.
So here's the current breakdown of injuries to stars or all-star level
But wait
players.
a minute, do we have enough time before the break? We have 40 minutes?
We may not.
Right.
Jonas Knox is warming up in the bullpen.
Exactly.
We'll see if we can get
seriously.
through this.
Right.
So this breaks down into 3 categories. Guys who have not even played during this playoffs because of injury. Julius Randle.
That's right.
Jimmy Butler, Zion Williamson, and Giannis. Okay? Here are guys who were missing at least 1 game due to injury. You just mentioned Kristaps Porzingis, Damian Lillard, Kawhi Leonard, and now tonight, Jared Allen of the Cavs, who was an all-star center. That's not even including the guys who are clearly dealing with some sort of injury and are choosing to play through it as best they can. That would be Joel Embiid, Jamal Murray, who had a great game in Game 5, and now Luka Doncic, who has a reportedly sprained knee.
Yep.
So that's like half of the teams in this playoff field are dealing with at least one all-star who is either out altogether or severely banged up.
It's unbelievable. And that's not even to mention Kentavious Caldwell-Pope last night. Twisted an ankle.
Yep.
Reggie Jackson got a bad ankle.
And we almost had Tatum when he took that shot after the whistle, Chris, and came down on somebody's foot, right?
Yep.
And twisted his ankle.
Guys, I'm not even including Anthony Davis because they're out of the playoffs, but he also has been banged up throughout these postseason. LeBron James turned an ankle. So it's an injury bug like we haven't seen in years.
I don't recall anything this bad, and
we could be wrong, but it doesn't feel like it. I'll tell you that.
I think obviously people talk about 2 explanations. One being that players don't prepare themselves. They don't train as hard during the season. Obviously, they train hard in the offseason. They really don't let themselves get out of shape. But during the season, they don't practice as hard as they used to. They don't play 82 games like they used to. And so does your body build up the resiliency to handle the playoffs, where every game is more intense, not only physically, but emotionally and mentally? And Rob, they generally are playing more minutes. Guys that might have played 33, 34 minutes in the regular season are playing 38 to 42 in the playoffs. And so that's one possible explanation. Your body's not built up to take that pounding anymore because you don't push it as hard during the regular season. The other one, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to say this too, Chris. I do believe that part of it is the over exercising, working out that goes on with people having personal trainers training as soon as the season is over. You watch people and they're doing all this stuff. Chris, people used to get a paunch in the off season and come back to training camp and work themselves.
Get in shape.
Get in shape. That's what training camp was. You didn't come to training camp in shape where you got 2 trainers at home all off season and you're working out like
I actually have a real break and vacation
from your body. You let
Yep.
your body. You ate,
Yep.
Chris. You put on 10 pounds. You know what I mean? And then
Yep.
I got to get back into shape and work myself into it. And then your body's ready to go. And I just don't think that they give their bodies a rest at all. And if you're not doing something with your own trainer or working out or doing something, something's wrong with you. Oh, you're not maximizing.
No, no
like
doubt.
they look down at you.
Yep. No, that's a great point. I agree. Remember Shaq? Shaq would get in shape during training camp.
That's what
you
you're
know?
supposed to.
Yeah, and training camps used to be a lot longer too.
Not 2 weeks, Chris, like they do now. You're
it was
playing,
like a
you
month
come in.
essentially.
Yep.
And you work yourself into shape, and they were hard. And so I think there's definitely truth to that. I just don't think the human body is built to be at 95% capacity year round. I mean, all the work they do. So and Rob, we see it. It's just like pitchers. They're throwing so much as they're young. They're not giving their arm a rest, and now you see a lot of the injuries. So I think that's a great point. I also think that you wonder, and Kerry Kittles is a big on this, Rob, that because the game is so spread out now.
Yep.
And,
point in this.
Teams are around the 3-point, basically 4 or 5 guys around the 3-point line. You have to guard a lot more territory defensively. And that's harder on your joints and things like that. So is that also a factor? Whereas before the game was centered around the paint and you were defending hard, but you weren't moving and covering as much space. And so I think that's a factor too. But this, Rob, if this were to become a trend, I mean, this is terrible. This is terrible. Like, this is when you want your teams to be at their best and at full strength, and most of them aren't.
100%. This is the time, and there could be somebody, but this is way too many guys who are out now, and too many. Like, my goodness gracious, every day you wince and go. When Tatum turned his ankle yesterday, Chris, I looked at that. I was like, oh, can you imagine if I'm a Celtics fan about to have a heart attack?
Well, Rob, I'm going to say this. And look, the Knicks are banged up themselves, right? Mitchell Robinson didn't play the other night. Julius Randle, we know, is out. But if Porzingis, Rob, and I get it that, they wouldn't meet the Knicks if they both keep advancing until the finals. And at least by the timetables we have right now, Porzingis would likely be back. But, Rob, without Porzingis, I actually think the Knicks will have a good shot at beating Boston. I really do. And that would really be and this is
I'm still
no
not sure if I would be
Knicks.
there. I think they could, but I would still pick Boston.
Yeah, I'm not sure who I'd pick. I have to watch it, as the series go on.
Because the Knicks could have lost the first 2 games to the Sixers, and I'm not trying to rewrite what happened, but Brunson, Chris, who came up big in Philadelphia for them, didn't shoot that ball that well, in the first 2 games.
The last 2 games, he's been fantastic.
Fantastic. No, I agree. On the road, he's been big time, but the first 2, they kind of had his number. I don't know if that's the right term, but
they've defended him well, even during the regular season. But so look, the league obviously has to look into this and figure out what in the world is going on. We know that players can get injured anytime. So we're not really talking about that. This is just so many. I mean, you heard it. Probably half the teams in the league have a star that's injured. And that is going to determine the champion. And you don't want that. So it's something for the NBA definitely to look at.